You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 649.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door. With your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from the APG Road Vessel Studio. Today's show is recorded on the week of January 27th, 2025.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. It's Juliet and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, dozens perish when a commercial flight collides with an Army helicopter while approaching Reagan National Airport.
Crash, crash, crash. This is Alert 3. Crash, crash, crash.
Also ahead, more news, your feedback, and today's plane tale. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and lock positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 649 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in
New York City.
and also in our live audience right now. Welcome, Roger. Good to see you. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a former U.S. Air Force pilot and retired Delta Airlines captain. And joining me here is from her lakeside studio in South. She's a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, IPA connoisseur, commercial multi-engine instrument rated backstabbing jumper dumper. It's Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. It's good to see you. Good to see you all. Nice that we have so many folks in our live chat today, but I'm sorry that it's under fairly somber circumstances, especially here in the U.S., and I know we'll get to that here shortly.
Yes, we will, unfortunately. And also joining us from his studio,
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
a former professional photographer, now a very serious amateur photographer, great dog photographer, former RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everybody. Show 649 reminds me of the Lockheed L649 Constellation. It was the first real civilian version of the Lockheed Constellation, as they previously just civilianized a military one. But it wasn't very popular, only flew with Eastern, I believe, and the version everyone else ended up buying was the improved Lockheed 749. So I hope to talk about that for another 100 shows.
Yeah, well, anything's got to be better than the APG 649, that's for sure. And from his home studio in the air capital, a low and slow pilot, AMP mechanic, old airplane enthusiast, and an engineer in the aerospace and defense industry, it's Nick Camacho.
Hey, Captain Jeff. Glad to be back. It's been quite a while since I've been with you guys, so I'm glad to get back in here with you and chat about airplanes for a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to have to duck your pay a little bit. Anyway, great to have you. Yeah, I can't wait to get caught up there, Nick. And also joining us from the Northwoods of the Atlanta suburbs. I should have changed that. I didn't. Race car driver, high performance, high altitude, tail dragging, and complex endorsed commercial instrument rated pilot with an affinity for self-taught haute cuisine and anything with enough horsepower to kill him. It's AJ Schramm, Alpha Juliet.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me back. I'm glad to see you guys. Glad we got a full house.
Yeah, me too. And last, but certainly not least, from her studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer, it's Liz Piper.
Hi, everybody. Great to see everybody. It's nice to have so many people around today. It's super.
It is. It's always nice when bad things happen.
Gina has a great idea here, Jeff.
Does she? What does she say? We need to get some IPAs. You're right, Gina. I'll give you my address in the chat.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, the campground. Oh, wait a minute. This campground says no alcohol allowed. So
that's
not a good idea.
You need a stealth
Camping?
delivery.
Is that even camping then?
Yeah, exactly.
I trust me. I don't get it. But don't tell anybody. But I've been drinking beer and wine inside my camper here.
What a rebel.
I know.
Have a good show, you.
Thanks, Liz.
Cheers, Liz.
All right. And let's go ahead and I guess we have to. Let's start talking about some aviation news.
Stand by for news.
All right. Well, as many of you probably know, there was a horrible accident last night. It kind of ended a long streak of no fatal accidents in the U.S. airspace. I guess the last one was 16 years ago. What was it called?
Colgan at Buffalo.
Buffalo, New York. And anyway, last night a PSA Airlines Canadair CRJ 700 operating on behalf of American Airlines, registration November 709 Papa Sierra, performing flight 5342 from Wichita, Kansas to Washington National in D.C., District of Columbia, with 60 passengers and 4 crew, had been on approach to National's runway 1 and was asked by Tower whether they could land on runway 33, which the crew affirmed. The aircraft was subsequently cleared to land on runway 33. The aircraft was on final approach to 33, descending through about, now this says 200 feet AGL. I'm not sure there. I've seen some other sources that say a little bit higher, about 0.6 nautical miles before the runway threshold when the aircraft collided with a military Sikorsky UH-60 helicopter, call sign PAT-25. Both aircraft fell into the Potomac River at 20:46 local time. Here's a quote from the tower. From somebody on frequency. Tower, did you see that? And all subsequent approaches were instructed to go around. Departures were halted. About 4 hours later, no survivors have been recovered. And of course, this was some time ago, not quite 24 hours ago, is when this accident occurred. And we're recording it on Thursday, January 13th, and it's presently just a little bit after 5 o'clock Eastern time. They did start operations again at DCA around 11 o'clock or so this morning, and they're still in recovery efforts in the Potomac River right now. Let's see. Tower told aircraft waiting for departures that there had been a collision on final to runway 33 and the airfield was closed, and they should return to the apron and shut their engines down. Tower diverted several helicopters in the area following the crash. A massive rescue operation commenced with multiple helicopters over the crash site, and boats were on scene for search and rescue. Emergency services stated that due to the current temperatures, people would have only about 15 to 30 minutes until hypothermia set in, and about 30 to 90 minutes survival time. Emergency services reported they received an alert from the FAA tower about the crash at 20:48, and a state and federal response was initiated involving about 300 personnel. So on January 30th, which is when we're recording this show, I guess early this morning, local police reported that fatalities were confirmed and so far no survivors. And now we know many hours later that the rescue efforts have stopped and recovery efforts have been ongoing, and not sure how many of the deceased they have been able to recover from the cold waters, but they're still working on retrieving each and every deceased person. So eyewitnesses reported there were suddenly sparks in the sky and the aircraft rolled beyond 90 degrees and belly up, possibly about 120 feet above the water, and plunged into the water. They could not see a helicopter. The FAA reported that a PSA Airlines regional jet collided midair with a Sikorsky H-60 helicopter. Okay, I think we already talked about this. NTSB has launched a Go team. I guess they didn't really have to go far. I think most of these Go teams are based in Washington, but I could be wrong about that. Okay, the U.S. Army reported that the Black Hawk UH-60 departed Belvoir, Virginia for a training mission. How would you say that in British, Captain Nick, since that's kind of a French name? Belvoir?
I haven't found it in your text, so I can't see how it's spelled.
Belvoir.
Bellivoire.
Okay.
How's that?
That's good. That was in reference to a discussion we were having before we started recording. Yeah, it's a little inside baseball. Anyway, they said that they were on a training mission, and that was involved in the midair collision. According to preliminary information, there were 3 people on board the helicopter. And since this was written by Simon on the Aviation Herald, we've been receiving a lot more information. Again, the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, I think they call it a Gold Top, is part of an outfit. What is it called? The 12th Brigade VIP Transport that transport VIPs in and around Washington, D.C. area. And, of course, the UH-60 is used for all kinds of roles, but that's what this particular squadron used that helo for. And they were on a training mission, but the people and just to kind of give you some information about military, the way they kind of designate things, if it's not an active VIP mission, then when they're flying around doing other things and maintaining their currency and that kind of thing, recency currency, evaluations, that sort of thing, they'll just designate the flight as a training flight, which does not mean that one of the people or several people in the helicopter were extremely low experienced people. In fact, the personnel aboard the helicopter were not inexperienced at all. And in fact, I think the instructor was like over 1,000 hours, I believe, on the aircraft, which is pretty significant in a helicopter. So there was some indication that they were on some kind of evaluation for night recency and night proficiency, which includes at some point in the mission the use of night vision goggles, although they're not sure whether or not the night vision goggles were in use at the time of the midair collision. So that's one of those things that the investigators will be looking into to see if that maybe contributed to the incident. So why don't we look at some video? And of course, I'm sure many of you have watched this video several times. This came from a security camera located on the other side of the Potomac. I think somewhere up near the Washington Mall, not the shopping mall, but where all the monuments and stuff are. And let me go ahead and hit play here. Now we're watching on the video, and we'll have this in the show notes. Although I think that most of you have already seen it. We're kind of focusing and concentrating on the bottom right-hand quadrant of this video. And you'll see, at some point you'll see an airplane that looks to be climbing and turning left, and that's indeed an aircraft that had been cleared for takeoff and was making that initial turn to the northwest to follow along the Potomac River to avoid the prohibited area P56. That's not involved in the accident at all. What we're going to be looking at is a little bit to the left of that, you'll see a bright light. And then you'll see, if you can barely make it out, there will be some green position lights that are part of the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter heading from left to right in our frame. So let me go ahead and hit the button here and see if I can get it rolling. Doesn't seem to be. Try it again. Okay. Please start. Okay, well. Why don't I do this, and then back over here to this, and then hit the space bar, see if that helps. There we go. Looks like it's running now. Okay. So, again, I wish I had a way of pointing this out, but in the lower right-hand corner, or maybe the center, Yeah, it's kind of in the lower center right now. You can see a light, kind of a greenish light just above the horizon line. And that brighter light just to the right of it is the light of the CRJ. And then, of course, I talked about that guy that was taking off on runway 1 and turning to the left. Okay, and then you can see that helicopter, and then they merge, and then the explosion, and then the debris falling into the Potomac. I believe I have a little bit more zoomed in view of this. Let me try this one. Okay, yeah, well, it was just like right before they collided. Here's, I guess, even more zoomed in. I didn't do this. I didn't realize it was even more zoomed in. Yeah, so it's really hard to see the helicopter in those two videos there. And then this is just video of some helicopters doing some search and rescue attempts after the midair collision. This next thing I'm going to show is some simulated radar reconstruction of what happened here using some of the, I'm not sure which app they used for this, but it shows the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, PAT-25, which I think I heard somewhere on the news, they said that PAT stands for Priority Air Transport. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. And then the one here that says JIA, is that JIA?
JIA, yeah, that's PSA or Blue Streak.
Oh, that's their code? Okay, so the Blue Streak or the flying for American, everybody's calling it American Airlines, but it was a regional jet, a commuter partner, 5342. Okay, so, and there's some ATC audio with this that we're going to listen to. It's kind of hard to pick up exactly what they're saying, but let's see if we can understand what the tower is communicating.
S25, CRJ in flight. S25, pass is CRJ.
This club has a aircraft in flight request for separation.
Okay, pass beyond the RJ.
472 Washington Tower, 1 star, 32017.
You can hear the background in the tower kind of reacting to the big flash in the sky.
472, American 3130, go around, turn left in 250, claim maintain 3000.
Okay. I think he was talking to the American that was out there a little bit further south over the river on final for runway 1. And there have been some folks that have been thinking that perhaps the military helicopter, PAT-25, when they were told about the traffic and to pass behind the RJ, they may have been looking further down at the normal routing that airplanes take over the Potomac coming in from the south, landing on runway 1, and maybe they were looking at that American, the one he just sent around, American, I think he said 3103, something like that. Yeah, so a lot of people are thinking that maybe they mistook that one for the traffic they were supposed to pass behind, not the one that was much, much closer to them and about to pass right in front of them. And then one more video, and I'm not sure exactly what the source is of this particular one. It looks more like a real radar screen, so I don't know if this is something that somebody obtained and took a little video of or not, or if this is something that's also recreated, but it looks more official to me. And so let me, and I'm going to hit play on this one. I turned the volume down because it's just some people talking in the background. I don't think this is taken when it actually happened, but it was like a replay of the radar display. And so let me hit this. And you see the helicopter coming in from the north. You see that little area designating prohibited area 56 just to the top of the screen. You see the CAs flashing. That means a conflict alert, I think. And the one kind of in the middle of the screen there is the 5342 flight, the RJ. Now on the bottom of the screen, you see the American Airlines 3130 down there coming into runway 1. And again, that's the one I think that they may have been looking at. And then, of course, you see the two returns come together there, and then everything stops on those two flights, the helicopter and the regional jet. And then at some point here, we heard in the previous video, and the audio of the tower telling American Airlines 3132 go around, fly heading, blah, blah, blah. So there you have it. Those are the only videos that I'm going to play for this news item. Again, they're all in the show notes. We're really trying to cut down on playing video because we realize that most of the people that listen to our show, more than 90% of you listen to the audio-only podcast. So we're trying to be better about not playing or relying too much on what we're looking at when we're recording the show.
UH Blackhawk is just confirming, Jeff, about PAT.
Okay. UH Blackhawk in our live audience says PAT does equal priority air transport, military VIP. Okay, good. Wow. Okay, so I've been yakking for the last 10, 15 minutes. It's now time to hear some thoughts from some other hosts here.
Jeff, now you've flown in that area a lot. Can I just ask you, how hard is it when you are trying to spot another aircraft that is not moving relative to you against the city lights? Because I'm familiar with Dallas, but I'm not with DC. So is it a very confusing mess of lights around there? How easy is it to pick out an aircraft's lights from amongst all the others?
It's very difficult. As you say, a lot of contrast with the dark, especially you're flying over a river that's not lighted. You have the lights of Washington, D.C. in the background. And so you have all these lights everywhere, and it's very, very difficult to pick things out when you're flying in there. Now, I have to say, in my experience, and I've flown in and out of DCA hundreds of times in my 35-year career, but usually, I can only think of one time that we may have actually done that circle to runway 33. We almost always continue on that straight-in approach to runway 1 for the airplanes that are the size of a DC-9 and up. Usually, you only hear the tower controller asking the regional jets and smaller aircraft, business jets, GA, to do the circle maneuver because it's a much shorter runway. It's like 5,000 and some odd feet long. And so I don't have a lot of experience doing that circle maneuver. But I can say when you are cleared to circle, you start heading off to the right a little bit toward the east side of the Potomac River over that area where near where this collision occurs. And then once you get the proper offset, you make a pretty good left-hand turn, and you're making that continuous left-hand turn to align yourself with the northwest heading runway. And I'm thinking, I can just see how this could happen. I mean, the crew of the RJ, there's almost no way that they could possibly see this helicopter. The only way they knew that there was a helicopter out there, as far as I can tell, is that they may have been listening to Tower talking to the helicopter and to pass behind the RJ. I don't recall hearing any air traffic control communication that's talking to the RJ saying there's helicopter traffic out there, 12 o'clock, at this altitude, whatever. It might exist. I just have not heard it. I have also heard through various sources that the military helicopter was returning from their training mission, and they were on route number 4, I think they said. And they said that all those routes, those VFR corridors and helicopter routes along the Potomac there, they have a ceiling of 200 feet, which means that the airplanes are not supposed to go above 200 feet above the water or above the ground there. And I've heard many people say that they think that this actually occurred around 350 to 400 feet above the river, and which might imply that the helicopter was operating out of its assigned corridor. They may have been a little bit too high in altitude. I don't know if that's true or not.
Messerman has a question here, Jeff. Why didn't the controller direct to the helicopter where to look?
That is a good question, Craig. I'm wondering the same thing. Is usually when you're called out traffic, you'll say, as I just kind of did in my little example, traffic 12 o'clock, 200 feet below, or traffic, or, moving from left to right or whatever. There's usually some indication of where just to help you look, because you have a lot of things to look at. If they can kind of direct you to clock position for your eyeballs to kind of head over that way and look for the traffic, and then if you know the altitude, either relative altitude to where you are or absolute altitude, you'll know how how to shift your gaze. You're going to look below where you are. You're going to look at the same altitude. You're going to look above where you are, so you can have a better chance of finding the traffic that's being called out to you. Go ahead. Was there something else, Liz, that I was supposed to be reading?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the reason I asked that question, Jeff,
Yeah.
was really to try and paint the picture from people who spend their time standing on the ground looking up at aircraft at night. And of course, against the black sky, all those lights, flashing lights, strobes, are very easy to see. Now, when you intermingle them with the city lights, they can merge and mix in with them very easily, and particularly if you're on a collision path. This is something a lot of people don't realize, but when you're going to hit something, it remains stationary relative to you right up to and including the collision. Otherwise, if it's moving either forwards, you're going to go behind it. If it's moving rearwards, you're going to go in front of it. So any movement is much easier for us to see, because our eyes are designed to pick up relative movement. We're a hunter species, really, and picking something stationary out requires our eyes to be right on it, and it's a very small area of acute vision that we can use to pick it up. All our peripheral vision, which is the vast majority of what our eyes can produce, is peripheral, and that requires a bit of movement for us to center on it, and then we point the best bit of our eyes at it and we can pick it out. So just that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second is from the airliner's point of view, because they're in a left-hand turn. These guys are coming from our right, as you quite rightly mentioned. They're going to be belly up to them, or certainly have a little bit of bank on until they're completely on the centre line and rolled out. And of course, they started off above them, so they'd be looking down at them, which is harder. Again, you've got to look over the sill of the aircraft to see it. And what's more, everyone's concentrating on the line-up. You're flying the finals turn. You're trying to line the airplane up. So certainly the pilot flying isn't looking out over his right, quadrant. He's looking ahead. And I bet your bottom dollar the pilot monitoring is doing something similar. Just perhaps go on to TCAS. Now, I don't know what equipment was fitted to the Black Hawk. At low altitudes, the TCAS won't give you a maneuver. It won't alarm you and give you a maneuver to fly, because you're going to be coming up towards aircraft parked on the ground, and it will eventually cut out at some point on the approach. Don't ask me what the heights are. I can no longer remember. They're
saying 1,000 feet in the chat room.
That sounds about right.
That could be.
But you still get a symbol. Both aircraft, if they've got TCAS, will get a symbol indicating that there is an aircraft there. So, were they looking at their TCASs? Were they easy for them to see? Well, I doubt it, because they're really in a visual environment, and the pilot flying's making an occasional reference down to his instruments for his height and speed, but not necessarily looking at his TCAS. And the helicopter pilot, they've got 3 pilots on board. They may all be looking out for the aircraft and trying to decide where it is and can they find it. The aircraft they've been warned of. And I think you're quite right. It's possible that they all latched onto the aircraft that's probably easier to see. The one that's on finals, they can probably catch its landing lights better. And it's maybe that they all transferred onto that. No one's looking at the TCAS to see if it's a closer aircraft. The air trafficker hasn't given many clues as to where to look. So, it's possible. So,
KUH Blackhawk in our live audience says if H-60 crews were using NVGs, which are night vision goggles, might have been tough to see the CRJ H60 no TCAS. Okay, no TCAS in the H60. But that was another point that I was going to make. Thank you, UH Blackhawk, that they said in this night evaluation mission that they were on this training/evaluation mission, part of that is using night vision goggles. Now, we're not sure. Hopefully we'll find out in the investigation whether or not they were in use at the time. But even if one of them or all of them, I don't know if all of you would wear night vision goggles, or maybe just the two that were up in the front in the control positions wearing them. I understand. I've never experienced flying or even putting on night vision goggles, so I'm not sure exactly how good, bad, difficult to see traffic at night is. I was talking with Captain Nick about it. He has a little experience with some, like the Gen 1 version of these things, and I suppose that that definitely could be a factor in this, being able to pick out traffic.
Yeah, the light again, they're very sensitive NVGs, and they're designed to work in low light situations. That's actually not the situation here. They've actually got light coming from everywhere, some of it very bright, including aircraft strobes and things. So that can cause blooming or blossoming of the detectors that show up. So, it can be. Sometimes it can be worse almost if you're in over a bright city using NVGs, certainly worse than if you're over a nice gloomy desert. They apparently work really well there. But no, it can be, they can be hard. But it's, you can flip them up and look underneath them. You don't have to have them in front of your face all the time. So you can scan using your naked eye, or you can use enhanced vision, but I don't know how good they would be in this environment.
UH Blackhawk says all of the crew use them. Sorry, commenting too much. No, you're not. This is great. I'm glad that we have this live audience with that kind of experience. That's why we love doing this show, because we're just the talking heads, but it's everybody's show. So I love this. So comment away. It doesn't necessarily mean that we'll highlight it or mention it, but we do read it. Thank you very much. But a lot of the coverage that I've been watching last night and all day today are kind of making it seem that this maneuver to come in on the Mount Vernon visual approach, or whatever approach, going to runway 1 and then peeling off, and doing a circling maneuver, which is a visual maneuver, to the other runway, is that like super uncommon? Why do they make them do, And the way it works is that they always ask the air crews if they are willing to do a circle to runway 33, and it's up to them whether or not they accept this clearance or not. Secondly, the reason why they ask airplanes to do that, again, the regional jets and smaller aircraft usually, is because that really helps expedite and make the airport much more efficient, because they have several times they have airplanes that are waiting for takeoff on runway 1. That's the only runway they can use for that particular takeoff and performance data. And so if somebody's coming in that can actually do the circling maneuver and land on the crossing runway, that just makes things flow much better, and they can get the takeoff aircraft flight launched much more quickly. And so that's the reason why they do this maneuver. Again, I may have done it once, or I don't recall if I've ever done it any more than that. We have weight restrictions in our special pages that say if you're below this weight, then you can go ahead and land on this particular runway. So it's not that common for the bigger airplanes. Main Man Micah in our audience says, would infrared goggles have made any difference? I guess he means night vision goggles. Infrared or heat signature. Okay, not light gathering, but heat signature. I don't know.
I doubt it, and I personally think that if the military have gone NVG, that's because that's the best technology for the work they do.
Okay. Very good. What do you anybody else have any thoughts about this?
So I was actually thinking about this all day today, and so first of all, PSA has a huge Charlotte base, so I have lots of friends, colleagues who are either previous employees of PSA, flown for them, or currently do. So my heart 100% goes out to them. I don't know anyone directly affected, but I'm sure one of them do. So, but my thoughts were kind of the same as what Nick brought up earlier. I was thinking all day today, most of the, I think, social media commentary, I really haven't watched the news. I've been at work all day, but has been, gosh, you have this helicopter that's flying along on this approach path. How could they not see this regional jet that was so close to them? But Nick's 100% right. It's so hard to pick out another aircraft in that situation. And this is something that I do in my flying job pretty much all the time I'm flying. So my job is being on the lookout for things that are going to be in the airspace for my jumpers, trying to visually identify the aircraft. A lot of times I have information on where that traffic is going to be. And this is all daytime, by the way. This isn't even nighttime. And sometimes it's still hard to pick out traffic. It can be a clear blue day. And if you don't have a lot of, basically a lot of contrast for what you're looking for, it can still be really tricky to see. I always find it more, or I should say less challenging to pick out aircraft either above or below my position. You know, you're not looking at them from a profile view at that point. You have more of the surface area to latch onto. And especially if they're not moving in the same direction as you. So, yeah, I just think it was one of those instances where they were not in a favorable position to be able to easily see that other aircraft. And, yeah, very possible they saw the wrong one, identified the wrong one.
Yep. What do you think, Camacho? Any thoughts?
No, I also agree mostly with what everyone's saying. You know, it's the comment that Nick made I thought was important is like understanding the background, you know, and thinking about where that helicopter is relative to the CRJ. You know, if he, and we don't know all the details, but if he's 200 or 300 feet below the CRJ and he's looking at the CRJ against the sky, that makes just such a difference in ability to recognize him versus him being up. And it's a fairly large cityscape behind him with lots of lights and other airplanes. So that's, you know, and then there's also been a lot of discussion on Reagan and just the flow, like the traffic flow with Reagan and the airspace. So I'm sure that'll get reassessed in terms of how many airplanes are going in and out of there, as well as like how the other traffic in that airspace interacts with their patterns. Yeah. And it's just, you know, it's one of those things where we've like walked down the path of aviation and solved so many problems that this happened. And I had a couple of friends asking me, you know, like why there wasn't like how ADSB was involved or how TCAS was involved. And it's like, we have all these solutions to almost the problem, but then we get in another, you know, another corner of the operational envelope, basically, where it's like ADSB is an awesome capability that we have, but it's still not super relevant when you're really close to the ground and getting close to landing. TCAS, as a couple of people mentioned, you know, it's really useful, but it's inhibited when you get close to the ground because of just the way it operates and the way it interacts with other airplanes close to you. So I think it's one of those, it's just a unfortunate lining up of the effects that will probably result in a new technology or a new method how we manage traffic close to the airport like that.
Yeah, I wonder if, you know, some version of TCAS 2.0, 3.0, what the next, you know, iteration of that is, that might have more protections for low-level traffic alerts built in a way that's not intrusive or, you know, that's the whole reason why it's inhibited now, so that you're not getting all of these warnings from, you know, when you get into a more congested environment appropriately. But gosh, you know, even at 400 feet, if there's someone on a collision course with me, I'm going to do everything I can to safely avoid that if I know about it. You know, if you don't know about it, you don't know what the threat is, then you find yourself in this situation.
And UH Blackhawk mentioned that many military aircraft don't have ADSB, which I think that's what I heard from a couple of people today also. But also, you know, ADSB has its limitations, especially in the way most people use it. You know, obviously, congested airspace is not always as effective in congested airspace. And I think a perfect example of that is if anybody's ever flown into Oshkosh. You just get in a small area with lots of airplanes, and there's just, at least in my experience with it, which obviously different than the airlines, but the way that the way that it's displayed in the airplanes that I fly, and the way that the information is consumed by the pilot, it's hard for me to imagine. Even if that helicopter had ADS-B, it's hard for me to imagine a current implementation of ADS-B that would have benefited the CRJ 700. Because you got to realize that if those helicopters are always crossing through there, those airlines are going to be used to always seeing a target on their ADS-B within a couple hundred feet. So they might become kind of immune to it.
Honestly, when you're flying an airliner and you're flying these speeds and you're maneuvering at below 1,000 feet, this is all visual environment. I mean, it's nice to have the bells and whistles and the screens and everything else, but honestly, you shouldn't be inside looking at the instrument, other than, cross-checking your airspeed and that sort of thing. It's just, you don't want to get fixated on that kind of stuff. You want to be outside looking, using your eyeballs. And we do have our human, beings have limitations, and we can only do so much, but we have to just use techniques that give us the best result if we can. But that's just that environment there. I'm sorry, that's a visual, see and avoid environment, and sometimes see and avoid doesn't work. Yeah, thank you, UH Blackhawk, for agreeing with that. Peter Tarantelli asked,
yes.
If the CRJ was in a left bank to line up with runway 33, would there be any lights or beacons on the belly of the CRJ for the helo to spot? And yes, I think that there would be at least one red rotating beacon on the bottom, maybe more. But other than that, no, I don't believe so. I don't think there'd be any other kind of lighting to help you.
No, he'd have his landing lights on. But if the angle is what we can see on that ADS-B trace, they would no longer be pointing at the helicopter. They would be pointing ahead of him. So yeah, and you can see the nav lights, but they're very dim in comparison with strobes. And they usually, I guess they might have wingtip strobes on a CRJ. I don't know, but they're pretty all round. So, but there are flashing lights everywhere in a city. Cars, headlights. And
so honestly,
it's tough.
If you're looking for the traffic and you see that guy on final out there with those bright landing lights pointed right at you, it's just a human thing. Again, because the traffic wasn't, pointed out to him not accurately, but it wasn't really pointed. It was just, do you see the traffic? Yeah, it wasn't pinpointed at all. And so, boom, they see that. Boom, that's got to be the traffic he's talking about. Again, we're just surmising that may have been what happened here. But that's what I'm feeling pretty strongly about. So if you're not looking over to your left, because why would there be an airliner over to my left, over there on that side of the river? Unless Tower had said, do you have the traffic that's maneuvering for runway 33? Maybe that would have helped. Or to your left, 11 o'clock, 400 feet or
1 mile.
1 mile, yeah.
1 mile
distance
would have got his attention.
That's so true, yeah. Never mentioned the distance as well. So, yeah.
Oh, boy.
And before we, does anybody have anything else to add before we move on to the next news item? Well,
I think we've covered.
What I'd like, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this for some time. Again, this is the first major accident that we've had in many, many years. And what I wanted to say is that what I didn't realize I was missing in a bad way, I don't know how to say this exactly, but I remembered very quickly after this happened last night that you have to sometimes listen to people on the news outlets that get these people that are so-called aviation experts that start saying things that are just so wrong, or it's so clear to me that they have no experience flying into where this happened, and they don't understand the whole procedures for airplanes coming in to land on runway 1 and circling to runway 33 and why they do that, and that it's not an unusual thing They were almost trying to make it sound like that was the reason why this happened, because they made this guy do this. No, they asked if they would accept doing that maneuver, and they did. It's not an uncommon thing. It's just, I guess my point is, I get a little frustrated. I've been yelling at my television and the radio a lot in the last several hours, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very reluctant myself to go. At one point early on when I started doing the podcast, I'm thinking, oh man, that would be a really cool thing to be one of these correspondents, these aviation experts, these aviation pundits. And I think it was what was the airline that crashed in San Francisco? The Asiana. Yeah, that crashed in San Francisco, the 777. And I was watching these people, these aviation experts answer these questions and come up with their ideas of why this happened. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I don't want to do that, because no matter what you say, there's going to be something wrong with what you're saying, or you're going to be completely out to lunch. You're just going to look like a fool. And no, I don't want to do that. If somebody calls me up and asks me to do that, I'm not going to do that. However, I made an exception today. Tom Seagraves, one of our APG community members, contacted me early this morning and said that they were wondering if I could be interviewed about this incident. And I said, I was kind of coming up with some excuses why I couldn't do it. I had some legitimate excuses why I couldn't do it early this morning. And then he texted me back again and said, well, we'd like to do something for the evening news. And can you have, do this interview with this, news anchor? And so I ended up doing it. And the main reason why I did it was because, and I knew that there was a potential for me to look really bad. Not look bad. Well, I just all the time look bad, but sound like I'm not saying
I think
what.
You're very handsome, Jeff.
Oh, thanks. Well, anyway, but I said, you know what? Put your money where your mouth is, Jeff. If you're gonna be complaining about these people that don't know what they're talking about, maybe you should be, setting an example. So hopefully I did. Maybe, and hopefully a good example. But one of the things I made a point about was this is my experience. I was in the Air Force. I was an trained aircraft accident investigator. I flew for Delta Airlines for 35 years. Many of those years, many of the fleets I flew on flew into DCA quite a bit. So I have a lot, probably hundreds of times going into DCA. So I know something, I have experience with this, and I understand why they're having people come into 1 and circle to 3-3 and that kind of thing. And I feel like I can talk about it. But if somebody asked me to comment about something that happened somewhere that I've never been, or some kind of flying that I've never done, like, a glider accident, I mean, I wouldn't volunteer to talk about that, because I don't know anything about gliders, or I don't know anything about GA. If a GA accident, I'd give all these GA people on our panel, Steph and Nick and Alpha Juliet, and say, contact these people. They'd be the people that would know, what the situation encompassed and that kind of thing. So anyway, so I just wanted to say something about the fact that I did not miss hearing some of these people that really shouldn't be spewing stuff. I call it just basically garbage that they're spewing out there. And
just a bunch of garbage?
Just a bunch of garbage.
The problem is that these newscasters, these journalists out there, they don't know whether or not you know what you're talking about or not. And then the public they're hearing this, and they're calling this person an aviation expert, and they're going, oh, they know what they're talking about, when they really don't. And, we've talked about this before on the show, where if they start talking about something to do with medicine or surgery and that kind of thing, I'd go, oh, really? I didn't know. And then Dr. Steph would say, no, that they're not even close to being correct about that, but I wouldn't know, because I don't know anything about that. So anyway, I get a little frustrated when it comes to stuff that I do know stuff about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think also you're humble enough to say when you don't know the answer to a question, just instead of just making something up. I feel like I've heard a lot of that. And it also, I think all of us, if we say something that we believe to be correct with some reasonable level of certainty, and it later comes out that it's not, we're going to make that correction too. So I don't think we're ever so sure about things until we know for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to make it on the interview with the Columbia Channel 17 News in Columbia, Missouri tonight. But, there's a lot of stuff that we went back and forth on, and I tried to make the point that what you just said, Steph, the podcast that I do, or that we do together, we try to make a point of the fact that, yes, we have a lot of experience in various areas, but sometimes, we don't really know for sure, and we talk a lot about accidents and that kind of thing. And we try to make it clear that this is what we think, but we might be wrong about that, and that's why we engage our live chat room and our live and our listeners, are part of our APG community, to correct us if we get something wrong, because it's important. We have to be right about these things, and if we say something that's not right, then we need to correct it, because you just have to be able to. I guess my point is, if you're out there and they know that you're someone that has a private certificate or a commercial instrument certificate, and they want you to be on the news, think about checking your ego and asking yourself the question: do I really want to be the expert on this particular accident or incident? Do I really know enough about it? Or should I say, no, you should probably look for somebody that does have a little bit more experience or knowledge with this particular type of flying. And I know it's hard for us, especially pilots. One of our characteristics is we have a lot of self-confidence. And sometimes, there's a fine line, and you have to sometimes just go, as much as I'd like to be the person that everybody goes to for the truth and the information about something, you just got to sometimes just check your ego and say, you know what, I might not be the right person for this. Yeah. And that's why I'm stopping doing this podcast, because I just realized that, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, that was something that ruined me for the news in general. I've had a couple other versions of a career, one of which was in law enforcement, and you can watch those experts, and you have to think, okay, if this is the thing I know about, I'm sure Dr. Steph does this with any medical expert that comes on. There's always something, and you have to think, okay, if that's what they're telling me about the thing I do know about, what is that? How does that apply to all the things I don't know about?
Mm-hmm.
There's a term for that too. I forgot what it is, but yeah, it's like, if I know something about this and I know they're really out to lunch, how much of what they do say is also out to lunch? You have to really be skeptical, I guess.
Gina's making a good comment here, Jeff, I think.
Gina in our live audience says, podcasts are the real media now. Mainstream media is all about sensationalism. Well, I was going to say, we don't have to worry.
We're not sensational?
No, we're not. No, definitely not.
And I think that's a good thing. And it's a good thing we don't have ratings, but I'm thinking, although the podcasts that are out there that, are really out there to make a lot of money, I guess you got to be a little sensational, huh? Right? To get the ratings up or the contributions up or something.
Get those clicks.
Yeah. So that's not what we're about here. We're about hanging out with friends and our community and, trying to learn something. Hanger talk, yeah. Okay. Well, that one news item took up almost our entire news segment. Should we talk about the A321 that caught fire there?
Yeah, Busan. Let's do Busan, and then we can move on, I think.
Air Busan. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and play this video, but it's just gonna run in the background while I talk about the preliminary report on this. I'm sorry, it's not a preliminary report. It's next one down. Okay. Let me get that going here. Okay.
Here we go.
All right. An Air Busan Airbus A321-200 registration Hotel Lima 7763 performing flight 391 from Busan, South Korea to Hong Kong with 169 passengers and 6 crew and 1 maintenance engineer was preparing for departure when a fire broke out in the back of the cabin. The aircraft was evacuated via slides, resulting in 4 minor injuries. The fire was extinguished about 75 minutes later. However, the fire had already broken through the crown of the aircraft. The aircraft was destroyed. South Korea's Ministry of Transport reported emergency services were doing everything they could to save the A321-200. The exact cause of the fire is being investigated. Okay, so you get the idea there with the the video here of the people doing an emergency evacuation and the smoke emanating from the last
a couple of photos
tail area of the aircraft. And Liz has some photos to show us. There's one of the thing. Clearly, we're not using this airplane again.
Well, not the top half.
Yeah,
bottom half looks fine.
Oh, could you do
Air
that?
Hawaii could use it for that.
Oh my!
flight that left the top.
Yeah, too soon, Liz.
I know.
And
It's only 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, wow. Now there was something that we saw in the media, some kind of a social media post that was showing an overhead bin somewhere in the back of the aircraft where it looked like some smoke and possibly fire was coming from. And that kind of just points to perhaps maybe somebody's knockoff battery charger or knockoff phone or something that wasn't functioning properly using lithium batteries may have caught on fire, overheated, whatever, and that may have been what destroyed this beautiful airplane. We're not sure.
Yeah, it just shows how quickly it happens and why you have to be very disciplined to get one of those evacuations done in the appropriate time. And it looks like they did a great job. I didn't see an awful lot of luggage, some pretty big handbags. But no, I hats off to the crew. I didn't see many people, if any, coming out of that rear slide where the fire initiated. So it looks like the crew would have got the door open and the slide deployed, but I don't think they were necessarily using it as an option. I suspect the smoke and the fire in the back of the aircraft was probably too much. So I'm glad everyone got out.
Yeah, for sure.
And this occurred before the flight departed,
yes.
correct?
Yeah.
So very lucky that happened on the ground and not in the air.
Absolutely. Good point, Steph.
Very good point.
Oh, we had a hat box, fire in one of the boxes on an aircraft out of Johannesburg on its way to London, and the cabin crew used 9 hand extinguishers with the halon ones, so they're very effective into that particular area to extinguish it. So that was a significant thing, but they got it out so that the aircraft was fine. But and so were the passengers, which was great. But no, sometimes these things are very hard to put out, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is for sure. Okay.
Getting to know us.
All right, it's time already for us to get to know us. The time of the show where we kind of figure out what everybody's been up to between shows. And let's see. I really don't have much to talk about, so I'll go first. Just been in the campground. Was I in the campground when we recorded last? Yeah, I was in Florida when we recorded last, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were just
Lakeland?
about to leave the next day.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I hit the road on Friday and drove back to Atlanta. Stopped in where did I stop?
Warner Robins.
Warner Robins, thank you. Just shy of the Macon, Georgia area overnight. Stayed in a hotel. I winterized the Road Vessel studio and headed back up to Atlanta. Stayed in a hotel Saturday and Sunday night. Did my normal singing on the weekend, and then Monday is when I checked in to one of my favorite campgrounds on Lake Lanier, and I've been here since then. And sung in a couple of funerals this week already, and my choir director is very happy that I'm back. Yeah, so it's good. It's good to be around people that miss you and love you and that kind of thing. So and that's why I love you guys. Well, yeah, not like you guys. not quite the same.
Well, not like
you haven't been away from us.
I know. That's
here
true.
every week.
That's true. I'm not away from you guys. You're always with me, and I with you. So
whether you want it or not.
No, I want it for sure. So that's really all I have. So who wants to?
Camacho next.
It's Camacho.
It's been so long.
Yeah, where you been?
Where you been, man?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of traveling for work. Fortunately or unfortunately, So let's see. The week after the last time I was on the show, I headed down to Texas for a couple of weeks for work. We got about 6 inches of snow in Wichita on Sunday, and I was leaving for Texas on Wednesday. So I thought, oh man, this will be awesome to get away from all this horrible snow and weather and everything. And so I left from Wichita on Wednesday and headed down to a North Texas area that was expected to get 6 to 10 inches of snow the following day. So that was awesome. I sent Liz a couple of pictures, but we did end up getting about 8 or 8.5 inches of snow in the area that I was at, which turned the airport that I was working at. So here's my entry into, and this may shock people, but Texas not quite as well equipped for the snow as Kansas. Really? So it temporarily turned the airport into a tail dragger mecca, as you can see there.
Absolutely brilliant.
Is that just the weight?
Just the weight of
just
snow
the weight of the
on
snow.
the back
Yeah,
of the
the weight of
airplane?
the snow.
They didn't realize you're supposed to brush that off
airplane.
a little bit, and that won't happen. It's airplane tipping. It's this winter sport.
Like cow
airplane
tipping?
Yeah, like cow tipping.
Yep.
Excellent.
So yeah, I was down in Texas for about a week, and then, or I was in North Texas for about a week, and then moved further south. Fortunately, got away from all the snow. Went down to the Gulf Coast. It was still chilly, but here's our approach. Yep, into Galveston. I got to the beach for about 15 minutes. We got our work thing up and running, and we thought we were going to have like an hour and a half to go to lunch. Everything went very well. So about 10 minutes after we got to the lunch place that we found, which is on that pier you can see on the right side, we looked at our phones and we're like, oh man, we need to be back at the airport in about 20 minutes. So we had to forego lunch and didn't spend any time out there, but got to see the water for about 10 or 15 minutes and then headed back. But then, and then this is heading home from, or heading back from Galveston to North Texas. So got some really amazing sunsets despite the weather while we were out there, but had a hectic couple of weeks, but fun, exciting, I guess, which is a plus. And then came home to a wind tunnel test last week in Wichita. So even though I was home last week, I was unable to join because I was predisposed at the lab at Wichita State. But got through all that, and now feel like I am getting close to getting my head back above water here around the house. So,
well, thanks for joining us. That's great.
Yeah.
Wait, we're not going to talk about football?
And the Chiefs are back in. I didn't really want to bring it up because it's man, everyone hates us. That's us being like the
Hate's
Chiefs.
a very strong
Chiefs
term.
fan. They hate the Chiefs, I guess. Not the Chiefs fans, but
Yeah.
Boy, if you if you follow any level of football reporting on the internet, the officiating cabal associated with the Chiefs' success is like reaching levels of the Kennedy assassination and that sort of thing.
Conspiracy theories, huh?
Nick, I'm not going to put this question up. UH Blackhawk is asking you, can you talk about your wind tunnel testing or not?
No.
No, okay. Yeah, I'll tell him no. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we can't talk about that. Yeah.
So,
well, he can, but we'd have to shoot him.
Yeah, somebody would.
Yes.
Yeah, Tim Van Ram, Fly Eagles Fly. Yeah, so the Chiefs have won. I don't even remember if the playoffs have started since I was on last. The Chiefs won handily in the first round against Houston. I say handily because I think it was a 10-point game or something, a 12-point game. and then had a very close game against the Buffalo Bills, home team of one APG executive producer.
Well, kind
who
of.
doesn't really care about football.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I just see a lot of Buffalo news, so yeah.
Our APG librarian,
Tiffany. It's
yeah.
Tiffany. Yeah.
Tiffany
Oh
is
yeah.
probably
So
not
yeah,
very happy.
the quick backstory is the Chiefs have a really good quarterback, and the Bills have a really good quarterback, and they've both been in the league about the same amount of time. The Bills quarterback's been around for a year longer, and the Bills have been a really, really good football team for like the last 5 or 6 years. And
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yep, and the Chiefs have also been a very good football team. They've played each other 8 times in the last either 5 or 6 years, and they're 4-4.
Wow.
And the Bills have won every single regular season game, and the Chiefs have won every single postseason game. So there's a lot of unfair, I feel like a lot of unfair scrutiny on the Bills and the Bills quarterback. But it's obviously
He's
it's
a nice kid.
fun from our viewpoint over here.
Yeah. You almost wish probably that maybe they won't have such a great season next year, and then we can all get excited about them, beating everybody the following year. So people just get off our backs.
What I tell a lot of people, what I tell a lot of my friends who are sports fans in other locales is that, I was born in 1986, and I didn't see a winning season from the Royals, our baseball team, until 2013. So however long that is, it's a really long time. 27 years or something like that. And then the Chiefs, I never saw the Chiefs win a playoff game until 2015, I think. So the Chiefs were good right when I started being, the Chiefs were good in 1993 and 1994. And I have like vague memories of that, but I was young enough that I wasn't really like into football quite yet. So, the last 5 or 6 years have been awesome, but I also had like 25 years before that of not really any success at all. So I don't feel that bad when
they're doing all right
mad
now.
that the Chiefs are taking all the drama out of football.
So they're going to be playing in the Super Bowl, which is in a couple of weeks, I guess, huh?
In Nolans.
In Nolans, yeah. All right. Well, very good. Well, sorry to all those people that wish that I hadn't brought that up. But all right.
Captain Nick next.
All right, Captain Nick.
Nothing happened. We've had a week of pretty lousy weather.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had some interesting weather, I think.
We did. It's been blowing a gale and raining cats and dogs. So now we're starting a rescue home for all the cats and dogs. So, yeah, that's been pretty foul. However, next week has some brighter conditions, so that's nice. Can I talk about the cover art quickly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I had great suggestions for titles for last show. Most of them were associated with evacuating your bowels in one way or another. So I thought we would go for the really
Taking the
nice
high road.
version. Yeah, take the high road. Exactly. It was a very special show for our lovely doctor, Steph, because it was exactly 10 years since she did her first podcast with Jeff. So I knocked up a collage. It's not a montage. It's a collage of images over the years. So thanks very much indeed for posting
impressed
those.
At how many pictures you were able to get of me.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
I
wait
do
a minute,
make
a
a
lot of
habit
those
whenever
I
I
took.
see one of any of the crew, I secrete it away. So there we go. And we managed to get a number 10 in there, which was great for 10. And we did still have the usual sort of hide the show number. So there you go. It was top above the 10. Yeah, we managed to get it onto Steph's running number. For one of her. That was only a half marathon or a 5K.
That was a
wasn't it?
5K, which we weren't even running because.
Well, you were jumping it by the looks of it.
Well, we were jumping
Not
it.
running it.
We were not running it because my friend that I'm running it with there has been on injury reserve, and my brother, who's to my right behind me with the blue sleeves, long sleeve shirt on, also managed to injure himself, but had to run the marathon the next day. So we were just trying to take it very easy. And I said, you know what? There's all those photographers. So we ran one side of the road. We had to come back the other side of the road. I could see all the photographers over there. I said, let's get a fun picture at least.
Oh,
so we did that jump about 40 times down the road, and we got that picture out of it.
Great. Love it.
Well, it looks so spontaneous. I love that picture. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yes. It was spontaneous. I take it back, yes.
There was a bronze, a silver, and a gold one of spotting the show logo. So this was the bronze. If you spotted it here, because I've got one on my grey shirt there on the left of the photo, but Steph, in her pink, has got two logos, one on her chest and the other on her head. So that was the bronze. Now, here's the silver, if Liz puts it up in the right order. I don't know, that might be the gold, actually. I think that's the gold. Well, there's the silver. That's it on my hat. Okay, grey hat, logo on the hat. And then the next one is, there you go. You can barely see half an APG logo. Again, on Steph's chest. We get a lot of pictures of Steph's chest logo here. So there you go.
You're going to have all these people flocking to the video, and they're going to be disappointed when they realize it's just a T-shirt.
Well, see,
Excellent.
she actually had the logo tattooed on her chest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. There's loyalty for you.
This one was just last year in Charlotte.
Yeah.
You were all together.
During our little retreat and meetup. Yeah.
So that's it from me. It must be AJ
Excellent.
next.
Yeah, I can go.
Yep.
Well, you're the only one left, old chap.
Well,
okay. I guess I will.
We really haven't heard from
Steph yet. Yeah, Steph didn't. Steph didn't
Go
talk.
ahead, AJ. Nick's just trying to gloss over. He's like, you had your show last show. You had 10 years.
You don't need to do
no more
anything
from
else.
You talked plenty. Yeah. I had a fun couple of things since the last time I was on. Got to go to California and spend a little bit of time out there. Have a friend with a pretty cool airplane. Let's see if I can get this to work again. No, that's not it. Hold on.
You had all this time while we were talking about the cover.
You know, that's why we can't have nice things.
Exactly.
That is it. Okay. Aha, okay.
There you go.
That should be correct.
What are you holding there between your legs?
That's a stick.
Oh, it's pretty big, isn't it?
See if I can get this to go the right way. Start at the beginning.
Okay.
Sorry if that made anybody dizzy. There we go.
Just kidding.
So went out, left some nice snowy horribleness. And it was 18 degrees when I left Atlanta and jumped on got to fly on an Airbus 350 for the first time, which was interesting. They're very flexible airplanes because on touchdown, the entire fuselage did this wiggle shimmy. All of the overhead bins were moving left to right. It was a little bit disconcerting.
I know about shimmies.
Yeah. There's our shimmies specialist.
Well, they need more shimmy dampers, don't they?
Yeah.
It could be it. That could be it.
Oh, hang on.
But otherwise, great flight out there.
Nope. Not playing that. Don't play that.
No,
Oh
sorry.
my God.
Airbus A320, McDonnell Douglas MD-80, and Fokker 100. The shimmy
Thanks,
damper
Jeff.
is installed
I
with
really
the apex
appreciate
joint.
this.
See figure 1.2.
That's enough.
That's enough of that.
I'm sorry. Couldn't help myself.
No, that's perfect. So got to go to have my favorite food, which everybody gave me a hard time about, but got my my double animal style, which was fantastic. It's always my first thing to eat when I get to California. So that was on the drive up to Mojave. So got to go up there. Mojave.
Yeah.
Got to
It's
drive
right around
through
the corner
desert, which
from
was nice.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
I got to go out there and do this event called the Star Wars Canyon Run. There's a group that's called the Airmanship Foundation that does events throughout the year, but this is kind of their big kind of cool fun one is they do formation clinics and just general airmanship, just specifically, flying the airplane. And that's everything you can imagine, from little RVs to jets to, there was a Bonanza, a V-tail Bonanza came. A guy did the canyon in a Cirrus Vision jet, which was kind of cool. So a lot of different airplanes. But up in Death Valley National Park, there is a little canyon called Star Wars Canyon, otherwise known as Rainbow Canyon, because of all the different pretty colors of rock that are in the canyon. And it's a really fun low-level training area that the military used to use. And there was an incident the military had, and they are no longer allowed to go below, depends on what their mission is, but I think it's like either 1,000 or 1,500 feet AGL for most of their stuff. They can't just go there and play. So we, being VFR, not talking to anybody, pilots can go do what we want. So got out to the airport and saw a couple of cool airplanes, and one of them's owned by a friend of mine, the one on the left in that picture. It's a L-39 Albatross, and so he invited me out to go play with it. So I had to do some work to actually get to fly in it. So got to do a little bit of work on the airplane and fuel it up and a few other things.
Put some gas in it.
Yeah, I made sure 100 low lead only. Absolutely. I was very particular about that. But yeah, got to go ride around on that thing and do some real low level flying, which is pretty intense. Being below the rim of the canyon and pulling about 5 Gs in that airplane. It's an exciting ride for sure. Kept the blue side up occasionally,
sort of.
But really, really pretty. Got to do a nice sunset flight. Let's see, which was really, really pretty. And it's really interesting. Right there at Mojave, they have this massive field of wind turbines, wind power generators. And there's thousands of these things. And so when you look at it on your display, on your primary flight display, it pops up with all these little tower icons, but it looks like there's an army of them marching over the hill. It's kind of disconcerting, but it's a neat shot. And then this is going back into Mojave, which Mojave is a really interesting airport in and of itself. It's the Mojave Air and Spaceport. So they've done a lot. It's kind of the sort of the mecca for experimental aviation things. If anybody's old enough to remember, the Voyager flew out of Mojave. Lots of space shuttle things. Spaceship One, I think, operated out of Mojave. And most recently, the Boom supersonic test plane flew out of Mojave yesterday to be the first civilian independent. There's a lot of qualifiers on it.
A lot of qualifiers.
Break the sound barrier over the continental United States. So yeah, I actually got to see that airplane as we taxied by because they had the hangar doors open, and we taxied right by the scaled composite hangar, which was kind of cool.
I have a question about that.
Yeah,
was when they exceeded the speed of sound, was there a boom?
You'd have. I guess you'd have to ask the Mirage pilot or the T-38 pilot.
Yeah, or somebody was on the ground nearby to confirm whether or not there was a sonic boom.
Out in kind of the middle of nowhere over Death Valley. There's not a lot of people out there.
Because isn't the whole point of the thing coming up with technology that kind of is extremely severely dampens the boom? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I didn't hear. It's interesting that they didn't talk about that really at all.
No, they didn't.
So the whole test bed as to whether or not it, worked. Well,
yeah,
we'll find out later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this taxiing back in from the jet flight, and like I said, really, really pretty sunsets out there. And
Gina is asking about the twin 747 fuselage. Wasn't that Space One or something like that you were talking about?
That was the mothership. Yeah, I think it's based there.
Rock,
yeah, they have a massive hangar.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a monster airplane.
You were correct, Gina.
Flying the jet there, and then that's a little better picture of the jet, which is it's a slightly formidable looking airplane. Was originally used as a primary jet trainer and ground attack in the Soviet bloc back in the 80s, kind of Cold War era. And I've heard that there's still a handful of them actually in service in Ukraine. They're still using them for ground attack mission stuff. So kind of interesting. Got to see my uncle, who I haven't seen in a few years. He lives actually out in that area, out in Bakersfield. So got to bring him out and show him around the airplane and stuff, which was neat.
Nice.
And then got to have even more fun. Went and flew with another friend of mine, Mike, in his RV6. So we went and bounced around in this little go-kart of an airplane.
Looks completely different than my RV.
Yeah, it doesn't look like
very different. Yeah, different RV. Fun little airplane. It is tiny. We are, me and Mike are absolutely shoulder to shoulder in the cockpit, but it was quick for what I expected. It was a quick little airplane. Little bit very. What's a good word? I don't know if deft is a good word, but it's very responsive. You think about moving the control stick and it does a thing. So it was interesting to get to know that airplane and get to fly it and do a few landings in it and stuff. And
cool.
Ended up being brought the cold weather with me, because by the time I left, it was in the high 30s, low 40s, and came home on Sunday night, very late Sunday night, back to a frozen Atlanta, and I get a text message from Mike Monday morning. It's a picture of snow on the highway in Mojave. So
wow.
It actually snowed and stuck to the ground, so that's kind of a rare thing.
So everywhere you go, there's snow.
Yeah.
And same
Maybe
with
it's me.
Camacho, too.
Yeah, by our powers combined.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're a couple of cool dudes.
So, yeah, had a lot of fun. Hoping to take DJ out in a couple of days possibly for her solo flight in a glider on Saturday.
Oh,
So
cool.
we're hoping the weather looks really nice, mid-60s, and not too wind's pretty calm, so cross
Fingers
fingers
crossed.
for that. Yeah,
Wish
this
you
could
luck
be
from
this
us.
could be it. I will.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yep. All right. All right. Good. I guess we can move on now. No, just kidding. Dr. Steph, would you like
Well,
to?
after all
share?
that build up, I had a very boring weekend, as I tell y'all. But I was just going to make two comments about the stuff that I did, and maybe a little public service announcement for anyone in the United States. So the only thing I really accomplished since I saw you guys last was that I submitted for my passport renewal. It expires at the end of this year, and I have hopefully some international travel planned at the end of the year, for which I should need 6 months or more of validity, and I don't have any travel planned at the moment, so I thought probably a good time for that 4 to 6 week lead time to get my passport renewed. So it's an every 10-year thing, so I haven't done one since then, but it's basically, as long as you just need to renew it normally and it doesn't need to be expedited, it's all done online now, which was great. And that website from the U.S. Department of State actually is user-friendly, amazingly.
Wow.
And it was a very simple process. And they let you upload your own picture now. You don't even have to go get a picture taken. You can do it yourself on your smartphone or whatever.
Are you sure this wasn't some sort of scam?
This was totally a scam. And I was quite impressed with the relative efficiency of it. I cannot say the same thing for the Treasury Direct website. And the reason that I know about this now too is, as I was getting my passport, my soon-to-be expired one out to go through all the information and put all that in, I was going through my safe deposit box as well, and found that I'd stashed all these Series EE Treasury bonds that were purchased for me by a grandparent as a child. None of them are worth a whole lot of money, but I was like, I wonder.
I'm rich.
Some of these have matured. Some of these are certainly worth probably cashing in at this point because they're not going to accrue more value. So I went to the Treasury Direct website and could not for the life of me figure out how to find the value of these bonds.
They don't want you to know.
Or I was able to, it looked like the website looked like it had not been updated since 1994. Just the way the font
beginning of the
was.
web.
And so there's one government website that's like nice and shiny and works and efficient. And this other one, I'm like, I did finally figure out how to find the value of the bonds, and I was able to print out a list of that, but there was no way to link that to my account so that I could just go back and like look at it or call them up and see. So it was kind of disappointing. So yeah, that was my government website adventures since I saw you guys last.
Contrast.
Yeah, contrast. And the only other thing I guess I have to say is, with this week's upcoming game, Go Birds. I lived in Philly for a couple years, so sorry. Nick, see.
Oh, it's a nice rivalry. It should be a very good game.
I hope it's a very good game. Yes.
For those of you into sports ball. I am. I'll be watching and eating my chicken wings.
Your Korean chicken wings?
Ooh, yeah. Maybe those Korean chicken wings. They're good. Very good. All right. So I guess let's just quickly do the coffee fund, although there's really not too much to talk about. But, just in case somebody feels like joining these wonderful people. So here we go.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
And I like to sing too. I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup. Wow, the latency tonight is extremely off. That was difficult for me to sing while I was hearing Liz singing about a half second behind me.
Sorry.
Anyway, no, I'll fix it in post though. It'll sound perfect.
No, I was coughing.
So, the coughing? Yeah, well, I can eliminate that.
It's the coughing fun.
The coughing fun? Yeah, well, it's not the coughing fun. Well, I guess tonight it is. So we have this mechanism or a way of you supporting the show financially. Several ways to support the show. One of them, financial, for those of you out there who can or have the resources to do that. We do appreciate that. And you can find out about how you can join the Coffee Bar Club by going over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. You can do a, once in a while kind of a contribution using the Coffee Fund Classic method, or you can even use a recurring contribution that way as well. And the other way to support us is to join Patreon. You can become a patron. So again, go over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee to learn how you can join the Coffee Bar Club. You'll be glad you did, and we will too. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the plane tale. The old pilot has sent us another volume of the RAF Form 414. I think it's number 32. Am I right?
You certainly are, Jeff.
That is incredible. Here we go.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. RAF Form 414, Volume 32. So the logbook tales continue. I left you at Bangkok, having turned my brand new Hawk trainer into a blowtorch and nearly cooking an inquisitive guard. Once we'd repositioned the 3 aircraft that we were delivering to the Royal Malaysian Air Force, I spent a while carefully wiping the soot from around the jet pipe with my handkerchief. We had a mere 500 nautical miles to go before arriving at our destination, and when it came time to pack up for the last time, I was looking forward to getting there. I've mentioned Royal Malaysian Air Station Butterworth before, as it had been the location of several detachments I'd been on with the Royal Australian Air Force, and I'd flown my final FA-18 mission on 77 Squadron from there, before heading back to Blighty to finish my RAF career on the Tornado. It was only 1 hour and 15 minutes of flying time before we arrived overhead the familiar airfield, formed a little Vic flypast, and then touched down at the end of a 7,000 nautical mile journey in our little single-engine jets. The Hawks had performed flawlessly and still looked great for their formal handover to the Malaysians. Hoppy and the other test pilots had several days of flying with the acceptance pilots to accomplish, something I wasn't qualified to do, so I headed to the resort area of Batu Ferenghi and the delightful beach hotel that had been booked for us. Lying on a sunbed, sipping cocktails, I contemplated the next hurdle that faced me after I hung up my British Aerospace orange flying suit. I had the offer of a job with Monarch and had also passed the interview with Virgin, but I'd yet to take the Virgin skills test in a simulator. We all flew home on flat beds, courtesy of British Airways, and I had a few Tornado flights to complete before I packed up and left Wharton. One of these was as a chase aircraft for the towed decoy trials being conducted. So with Happy Hoppy leading, the two of us headed up over the Irish Sea. With the decoy deployed, I loosely formated on it, whilst the lead aircraft seemed intent on shaking it off with a series of whiffadills, defined in Wiktionary as elaborate multi-axis aerobatic manoeuvres, especially ones in which an aircraft makes a series of very tight turns in order to reverse its direction of travel. In reality, these were a series of carefully briefed manoeuvres laid out by the trials engineers. On completion, we headed north to the military weapons range at West Frew in Galloway, on the west coast of Scotland, to drop the decoy onto the muddy shore from where it could be recovered. These trial devices weren't equipped to be wound back in, so had to be jettisoned. From the clear blue above the cloud, we descended down into the murky Scottish gloom, whilst I glued myself to Hoppy's wing. The weather under the overcast was misty and dank, and the closer we got to the drop area, the worse it got. We were skimming over the tidal mudflats at speed so that the decoy wouldn't droop down into the ooze and get ripped off. I was working up a nice sweat, keeping my tornado in position, when I spotted something amiss with my leader's aircraft. We were in the countdown to dropping, so I stayed quiet until the wire parted and the little winged cylinder fell away before I called Hoppy. We confirmed a successful drop and then gently mentioned that a considerable part of the aircraft's skin over the engine had parted company with the airframe, exposing all sorts of pipes, wires and structure. To my surprise, Hoppy didn't seem particularly phased, but he decided to complete a low-speed transit back to Wharton to prevent any further damage, whilst I was cleared to make my own way home. Jim in the back seat was happy for me to wind the jet up. Since we had plenty of fuel, we decided to see just how fast we could get there. Choosing a track that would keep us away from land so that we didn't drop a boom on the unsuspecting public, I parked the throttles into the top left corner, swept the wings back, and let her go. I kept us a few 100 feet high, as a sneeze might otherwise prove disastrous, and we soon passed 600 knots, approaching the sound barrier. We slipped through without a ripple, and once the variable ramps in the intakes motored into position, we really took off. We soon passed 700 knots, and then the RAF's never-exceed limit of 750 knots. Hitting 800 knots, I started to throttle back. We were doing 15 miles a minute, and Wharton was getting uncomfortably close now. As the acceleration eased, I saw 820 knots, and then, with the engines back at idle, we felt our straps bite our shoulders as we slowed. What a rush! When Hoppy got back, he explained that popping a few engine panels was a known thing with the early tornadoes, and happened after a rapid build-up of pressure in the engine compartment with big changes of thrust. Some of the aircraft we flew hadn't been modified with the improved panels and larger fasteners, so it still happened occasionally. So, after what had been an exciting day, I bid everyone a fond farewell and headed down to Gatwick. It was funny, but I felt more trepidation at what was to come than I ever did scuttling around at low level over the water at speed, kicking up rooster tails of spray from the shock waves that trailed from my aircraft. What happened over the next few days would decide my aviation future. Arriving at Virgin's 747 simulator base with several other hopefuls, we sat in a small classroom whilst a training captain talked us through the profile we'd be flying. It didn't sound particularly taxing. A takeoff, climb, some turns, a holding pattern and vectors to an ILS, to fly a raw data approach to land. We'd be expected to ask for services like flaps and gear when we wanted them, but we'd be told of limiting and target speeds as we went along. If there was an emergency, we're expected just to deal with it by asking for an appropriate drill. It would take about 30 minutes each, and I was going next to last, so I had a few hours to kill. After thinking it all through, I kicked around whilst candidates were called in one after another. It was testing enough just to wait as my nerves grew and grew. Funnily enough, as I strapped into the box and took a deep breath, I felt uncannily calm. By now it was late evening, but I wasn't tired, just quietly excited. When I pushed up the 4 throttles to start the takeoff, I kind of felt at home. This was the job my father had done, and at last I was truly following in his footsteps. We got airborne and cleaned up, and I quickly discovered how nice the 747 was to fly. It was only a simulator, but it felt like a big Cessna 150. The controls were beautifully harmonized and quick to respond. If it was anything like the real thing, it wouldn't feel like I was dragging over 200 tons of aircraft around the sky. I was flying turns, reversals, climbs and descents, and kind of enjoying myself when I spotted a little flick of the main attitude indicator. It had jerked a little, and then suddenly stopped. I glanced across at the training captain's instruments and then at the standby AI. Mine was reading differently. I transferred to the standby and rolled wings level, adjusting to get the heading and height I had been told to achieve. I diagnosed an instrument failure and asked for the drill, commenting on the rather awkward scan I now had to perform. The captain assessing me asked what I might do to make that easier, and the penny dropped. I was treating this as a test of my skill, so assumed that they wanted to see me fly using the standby instruments, but what they really wanted was for me to behave as if we were a crew. I wasn't single pilot anymore. I asked the other pilot to take over, which he did, whilst they fixed the problem. Back in control, I headed off to join a hold when the fire bells and red lights went off. I identified the engine and called for the fire drill, but that too was quickly cured. I never got to the hold as they seemed to cut the sim short, and before I knew it I was flying a raw ILS. In fact, I don't recall using the flight directors on the test at all. Fully configured and going down the glide slope, the big girl just sat there, as stable as could be. I couldn't quite believe how easy she was to fly. I plonked the sim down and we ground to a halt. "Okay, thanks, we'll be in touch," said the training captain, and I glanced at the flight engineer. He grinned and gave me a big thumbs up. Now I had to play my cards carefully. I was only a couple of weeks from starting my A300 course with Monarch, and I needed to know where I stood before I signed a contract with them. I apologized and explained, assuring them that given the option, Virgin would be my first choice. "We'll see what we can do," was all I could get from them. The next day I drove the 400 miles back to the family. All I could do now was wait. I guess you can imagine how tense the next few days were. I tried to play a little golf and wrote letters to the companies who had shown an interest, but I'd made up my mind to join one or the other. There was less than a week to go when the phone rang, and I was offered a job on the new Airbus A340-300 fleet that Virgin had acquired. I sat down and composed a letter to Monarch advising them that I wouldn't be taking them up on their offer. It was difficult. I felt bad about it because I knew that they'd have to fill my place at short notice, but I also knew that I needed to think of my family and my future. I had a few weeks to wait, and then I would be reporting for training at Gatwick. In the meantime, I thought long and hard about my future with Virgin. I'd been allocated a course on a brand new type, new technology, glass cockpit, and all that meant. I'd really enjoyed my time in the 747 Sim, flying an aircraft with iron instruments like the Phantom, Tornado, and Hawk that I'd enjoyed so many hours on. It was also an aircraft that my father had flown, and I wondered. Eventually, I plucked up the courage to phone the Director of Flight Operations at Virgin Atlantic. I thanked him for the job offer and asked him if there was any chance I could get a slot on the 747 fleet instead of this new and unknown Airbus A340. There was a long pause before, in his clipped accent, Captain Nightingale replied, "Don't push your luck, Mr. Anderson." Suitably cowed, I arrived for my induction, a day of briefings and form signing, then off to a little commercial uniform shop to pick up my first of the 4 different Virgin Atlantic uniforms that I would wear over the next 25 years. It was a horrid thin black nylon thing, but did have the advantage that if you slept in it, it would look as good when you got up as when you had fallen asleep. Next it was a date with the company doctor, Doc Chapman, in some rooms he rented in a nearby Gatwick hotel. We chatted as he prodded and poked me when I saw and admired a painting on his wall of a British United Airways VC-10 inside a hangar. It turned out that he had been their company doctor as well. I asked if he remembered my father, a tall, slim Australian captain. It turned out he did, but more so my brother Chris, who worked as an apprentice ground engineer. He'd sorted out an eye problem he had. Afterwards I contacted my bro, and he most certainly remembered Doc Chapman. Chris had painful eyes and came to work wearing dark glasses because he had become sensitive to light. Chapman spotted him in the company car park and insisted that he came to his office. Within 30 minutes, Chris was in an ambulance headed for the Moorfields Eye Hospital in London, where it was confirmed that he had a serious eye infection. Without his speedy intervention, Chris would have likely lost his sight. Completely by chance, in Doc Chapman I had found a family friend. The next few days were spent in ground school, cramming for our first hurdle, the Civil Aviation Authority Type Rating Technical Exam. These exams were notorious for asking the most ludicrous questions that bore little resemblance to the useful knowledge you would need to operate the type. I believe that they were set by folk with no real knowledge of the aircraft, but they'd been given a copy of the FCOMs, the Flight Crew Operating Manuals, from which they picked facts at random to put into the question papers. An example might have been, instead of asking the reason for a particular arrow that might appear on the ECAM, the Electronic Centralized Aircraft Monitoring Systems pages, they would ask what colour it was. I felt enormously lucky and grateful that we were the 4th or 5th batch of company pilots to go through this exam. So by now, after quizzing those who'd just finished, the ground school staff had assembled a good number of questions asked. Those cheat sheets combined with some honest-to-goodness teaching in a classroom, and we all managed to get through. One of those days with our instructors was spent with a real aircraft. It was our first chance to stand beside the elegant French lady, and boy did she look good. Perfectly proportioned, she was long and slender, and everything about her was new, shiny and well designed, except perhaps her waste disposal system, but more of that later, I think. She sported a mighty undercarriage, seemingly endless, slim, high aspect ratio wings that stretched for 198 feet, 60.3 meters, only bettered by her everlasting fuselage that was an inch short of 209 feet, 63.69 meters. The flight deck was roomy and nicely laid out, with little more than the 6 cathode ray tube displays, the overhead systems panels, and the center console holding a few McDo multifunction control and display unit boxes, levers, radios, a transponder, and a printer. So far, we'd been fed information with a proverbial fire hose, but that was about to change because as part of the purchase deal, we were packed off to Airbus Central in Toulouse to be connected to the French equivalent of the Colorado River Aqueduct system.
But more of that in the next exciting installment of Captain Nick's Logbook.
Not sure what that was at the end.
He was in the aqueduct.
It was my attempt, a bit of cinema advertisement, perhaps.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, Liz says she thought you were in the aqueduct.
Yeah, could well be the case.
Big pipe.
Yes.
So that was pretty
Yes.
ballsy of you to request the 747. You should just be happy that they asked you to be a pilot for them, Captain Nick.
Well, that was, yeah, I was very much in two minds, but I thought if you don't ask, you don't get.
That is true.
So,
in a way, they probably thought.
What's the worst that happens? They say
asked and
they
he
said
didn't
no.
get. Okay.
Yeah,
The worst that
exactly
happens
right.
is I forget it. We don't even want you with our company anymore.
Yeah,
Forget.
you
We
big-headed
rescind
git.
the offer.
Go away.
Well, if you'd
No,
gotten
you-
the 747, would you still be making fun of Boeing as much as you do?
Oh,
No.
Undoubtedly, because everyone on the 747 when they got rid of them ended up on Airbuses. So although a few of them moved, I guess, to the bin liner, but most people moved on from there to glass cockpits.
I always knew you were a secret Boeing lover.
Yeah, well, actually, I was because I grew up flying in the cockpits of 707s and 747s with the old man, on my many flights with him sitting on the jump seat. So, and he loved the 747, absolutely loved it. Didn't think much of the 707, particularly compared with the VC-10, but no, he thought the 747 was great. And I have yet to meet a pilot who did enjoy flying that airplane, so undoubtedly I would have done as well.
Cool.
Well, I think you did a very nice job of complimenting at least the simulator of the 747.
It was a,
Well, it was
a
fun.
simulated
it was a
compliment.
really old, simulated compliment. Yes, it was a really old sim as well because the company only had sort of 100s and 200s. I think they only had 10 aeroplanes when I joined, so it was a pretty small outfit.
Next, can't wait for the next volume.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next installment of the form.
Well, my civil
414.
career doesn't have quite the same excitement as tootling along at 820
Well, I want to hear
miles,
about
but
all
there
those
you go.
drinking escapades and stuff.
And all
How
those
I
flight
became an
attendants.
alcoholic. Yes,
Intoxication education.
Very
There you
good.
go.
So you got about 40 minutes to the 2.5 hour mark to power through this feedback.
Okay, let's power through it then. All right, we'll start off
Cool.
by doing this.
Captain, incoming message.
That's cute stuff.
He's like, are you sure you have 40 minutes left? I'm ready to play tug of war now. And this thing squeaks, so if you hear the occasional squeak, I'm sorry, my dog has a toy that he's trying
Ambiance.
to tempt me with.
I don't know if these are on the same order for you guys, but where Camacho is and where Steph is, Camacho's son went out of frame and the dog appeared in Steph's frame at exactly the right time.
Wow.
It threw me out, and then it went back the other way, and I was like, what's happening?
Yes, I was brought this peace offering, which I think is some sort of dodo bird. not sure, but
I want to
it's
play.
his favorite.
Well, it looks like it's got an umbilical cord.
It's actually the feet. Like you're supposed to have the feet on either side of the bird and tug back and forth, but it pulls like all the way through. And they'll just pull it all the way through and then, grab onto it right next to each other and play tug of war instead of as it's designed. But, clearly the human dog toy designers did not understand the dog brain.
Well,
Dog
that's
psychology.
cute. Very cute. All right. Let's start with this from Sam Dawson. APG crew, the sad news today will probably take priority on the show. Yeah, we covered that mostly on our news segment. But there was some other news. This news covers the Busan Airbus fire. It appears it may have been caused by a lithium battery explosion. I know I've been harping on this, but I think it's a real safety issue. If this had happened 30 minutes later, the outcome might have been very different. By the way, fond memories of Busan, as it's where my wife and I, as young lieutenants, spent our first Thanksgiving together. Nick, I don't see an F in lieutenant. I think.
Well, there used to be, so
I think that
go and check your dictionary.
I think that the key here is that when you see a U, you're to pronounce it with an F. So, okay,
F-U.
Well, okay, thank you.
Smoke, just smoke.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That is smoke. Fume. My wife was homesick, as it was her first Thanksgiving away from home. To cheer her up, I decided to take her to the most Western place I could find, a German restaurant in Korea. It was,
Good Lord.
It was like the closing scene from A Christmas Story, as the goose my wife ordered was brought out to her head. I'm sorry.
Oh,
hang on. I have to
again.
reread that because, okay. It was like the closing scene from A Christmas Story, as the goose my wife ordered was brought out to her head, neck, and all. I was about to laugh hysterically when she started to cry. Sorry.
Did not help the homesickness?
No, probably not. It probably made it worse. Sorry, a slightly humorous story on a tragic day. Now, you know what? And we've talked about this so many times on our show, is that sometimes, when things are really, really serious and sad and tragic, humor, I think, kind of helps,
You need it.
deflect all the bad feelings that we're all feeling, and helps maybe numb us a little bit. And then he sent a link to an article from Paddle Your Own Canoe.
He knows the good sources.
Yeah, I was thinking, are you sure you didn't put that in
I
there,
did
Liz?
not. I did not. It was his source.
Okay, an exploding battery pack or laptop computer that overheated could be the cause of the fire that erupted on an Busan Airbus A321 at Gimhae International Airport in Busan.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding. I get a ding?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. 7 people were injured during the evacuation. Dramatic eyewitness videos taken by passengers and airport staff during the evacuation revealed how quickly flames engulfed the single-aisle aircraft. It was preparing for departure for Hong Kong. Passengers had just boarded the plane at around 10:15 p.m. on Tuesday when some witnesses say they heard crackling sounds coming from an overhead locker at the rear of the plane. A short time later, smoke started to pour out into the cabin. The pilots quickly initiated an evacuation via emergency slides, with all 176 people on board, including 7 crew members, successfully escaping the burning plane. 3 passengers, however, sustained minor injuries during the evacuation, and 4 crew members were treated for smoke inhalation. So they were ruling out the possibility of, although investigators are not yet ruling out the possibility of terrorism, there's currently no evidence to suggest that this is the case. And it's believed that to be an unlikely explanation for the fire. So, all right, so they go on to talk about lithium-ion batteries and how dangerous they are. And so the rest of it, if you want to read it, is in our show notes. All right.
I realize now we found out who the other person who goes to Paddle Your Own Canoe is. It's Liz and Sam.
Exactly.
Yeah, just those 2 are keeping it alive.
We know it.
Yeah.
We know quality.
Yes, you do.
Bad quality. Anyway.
Yeah, that's why you're part of our show, Liz. You recognize poor quality.
Yes, I'd fit right in.
You fit right in. Okay, next one from Shane. Let's see. Great feedback on the Jeju crash. All of your comments beg the question: if you had a dual engine failure, why did you attempt to go around if you're already configured for landing? To this point, I haven't done an in-depth analysis to the phase of flight they were in, but I believe they were close in on approach. Yeah, they were. I think we were all looking forward to hearing the results from the accident investigation. It's such a tragedy for all involved, and my heart goes out to all the families involved. Best regards, Shane. And to be fair, Shane sent this in a while ago, shortly after this horrible, tragic accident. I've thought the same thing, and it wasn't until, and I think we were going to touch on it. It was in our news lineup for this show, but we're going to move it to the next one. But there is was it a preliminary report? Yeah, prelim.
It was a very preliminary report. There's not a lot of information in it at all. A few facts.
And the thing that we'll talk about on the next one is that it was interesting wording they used. It almost made it sound, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, that the crew initiated the go-around and then hit the birds. They had the bird strikes and took out the engines and everything else. So that might explain why the gear was no longer down and the flaps were retracted. You clean everything up when you do a go-around. So I'm wondering if that was just a mistake in the translation or if they really meant to say that. So again, we'll talk about this on the next episode. But thank you, Shane, for sharing your thoughts about that, and I agree with you. Not much else to say. You said it well. This from Sam Bolog out in Southern California, Los Angeles area, and we were kind of concerned about Sam, and we sent him an email asking if he was okay regarding the fires in the Los Angeles area. And he said, I'm somewhat near the Hughes fire, which is just north of me, and the winds have picked up today. They are forecasting the possibility of rain this weekend. And then we heard some further information from him saying that all was well. He escaped the negative effects of the fires out there, and things are, that's good. And he was happy that we were concerned about him. And yeah, you're part of our family, and so we're concerned about all of you, especially some of those.
Yeah, we're concerned that they're part of the family.
We're concerned about some of these people in the chat room that, as far as their mental
Tim's gone to dance.
status.
So.
My stream just died, Liz. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. Nick's StreamYard has died, so he's working on it.
Okay, Nick's StreamYard has died on him.
Oops, Steph's disappeared now, too.
Uh-oh.
They're dropping like flies. Where's Camacho?
Am I here? Am I still here?
I'm here.
You and AJ.
I can hear you.
The you and AJ. Oh, there's Camacho's back.
Oh, there's Camacho. Okay.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Is my internet okay?
Yeah.
Because I had to.
Because
there was a point earlier in the show where it just started. I just started seeing all those little swirly things going on in the video, and I'm thinking,
No.
And you didn't notice, but I switched my internet source. So, and I'm surprised.
StreamYard just kicked me off.
The old sideswipe?
No, it wasn't. No, it
just
was an error message from StreamYard saying you've lost your internet.
Oh, okay.
Which I hadn't, because I'm still chatting to Liz on.
Do you have your new fiber yet, or is that?
No, weekend, Saturday.
Okay.
I switch over.
Cool.
Half an hour left, guys. Half an hour left.
All right. Thank you, Liz. Okay. So anyway, we were talking about APG community and family, and how we are concerned about the mental capacity of some of those people in our family. But
Tim's gone to dinner now. It's okay.
Oh, Tim's at dinner, so we're okay. All right. The reason that Sam sent in feedback was this. It was a link, and we're not going to play it, but you definitely want to watch it. It will be in the show notes. It's a video. In fact, you know what? I think I can play a little bit of it, and we can listen to a little bit of what's going on. Let me just set it up a little bit.
Just read out the title of his feedback there.
Yeah, the title of the feedback is "We've Come a Long Way, Baby," and this is a it's a video, a black and white video from 1963. And I don't know, I think people here in the United States and probably some other countries as well, remember the show called Candid Camera, where they kind of set people up and do crazy things and see what their reactions might be. And so the setup is, it looks like this is some kind of an airline desk where people are, I guess, like a airline agent, and where you might be going up to get your ticket or boarding pass or something like that. Is that what you would think, Liz, about that?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Okay.
Inquiry.
So this guy's, in 1963, he's wearing a nice overcoat and a nice hat. And he is at the desk talking with the dispatcher, and a younger lady walks up wearing a pilot uniform.
Bob, what time do you have?
About 3:20.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, everything's in order. And congratulations, by the way. Why? That was your pilot. That girl was? I'm sorry. With my pilot? Hey, what's the matter? That girl? Yes, sir. It's a new service. You
have to watch his expression. And there's also a flight attendant that is part of the next part of the Candid Camera little prank that they played. And the reason why it was called a prank is that back in 1963, in the airlines, there were no female pilots, 0. But it was, 9 years later, I think, that the first real female pilot was hired, I believe. I think I read that
actually
somewhere.
know that stat, but I don't.
Yeah, I think, somebody, Steph, figure it out.
I'm looking.
I think it was 1974. It may have been United. I'm not sure about that. But, and now, of course, nobody really thinks twice about it. And although I think that most people would agree that, we it's a pretty low percentage still of our professional pilot workforce, and
it's on average 6%.
On average,
6% for airline pilots.
Yeah, well, we got to get that up to 50%, right? Yeah, as long as and don't want to get into politics or anything, but 1973, okay, 1973.
Bonnie Taberzi for American Airlines.
American Airlines,
US
okay.
Commercial airline. Female.
Very good.
Well, that's if you don't count Emily Howell Warner. That was 1934.
Flew for an airline?
Or excuse me, Helen Ritchie was 1934.
Yeah, but she wasn't flying for an airline, was she?
Central Airlines.
Oh.
First female pilot to fly for a scheduled airline in the United States.
There you go.
Well, so this guy shouldn't have been so surprised then in 1963. All right.
Been going on for 30 years. Come on.
Yeah, no kidding. Old hat.
Sorry, I will amend mine to major U.S. airline.
Major.
1973.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's kind of dissing the Central Airline, or what was it called?
Central, yeah. Well, remember, this was 1934, so.
Yeah.
All airlines were major.
Pretty early
or
on.
Minor.
Yeah.
78 in Canada.
78 in Canada. Okay. Very cool. All right. Thank you, Sam. And glad you're doing well. This from Michael Smith, our Sonics pilot. He said, never heard of this one. Another idea that just never took off. The design of the steering system must have been really interesting. And then he sent us a link to a flyingmag.com article regarding, and this is Mike Smith, Maynard, Mass. And again, as I said, he's a guy that built and flies Sonics. And we usually see him every year at Oshkosh. So this airplane, a really strange looking airplane. It's a Fairchild XC-120 pack plane. Became an intermodal hope that fell flat. And again, from Flying Magazine. In the years following.
You sure they didn't bring this out on the 1st of April?
Well, no, I don't think they did. I think this was a real thing. We've talked about over the years how, and we've always thought we were always kind of a little hurt as pilot crew members that they would think about designing an airplane where you could jettison the passenger compartment and the flight attendants, and then the pilots would be the only thing left flying the airplane that was on fire down to its fiery destruction.
Doom.
Yeah, and in the meantime, the the passenger part of the airplane comes down under parachutes, and everybody's happy and safe and alive.
Yeah, but this is
kind of
another
reminds
concept.
Yeah, this is a different concept. This is one that's kind of this compartment slung underneath the aircraft. It was based on let's see, developing the C-82 packet and its improved successor, the C-119 flying boxcar. The problem is, and if you'll look at the pictures that we've included in the show notes, is that because the compartment that can carry cargo and or passengers fits right underneath the top half of the fuselage, and so the pods, what would you call those, tail beams, help me out,
booms,
tail booms, on
boom,
either
boom,
side,
to shake the room.
So they have a couple of radial engines on either side, and then a part of that becomes part of the tail boom, twin tail, etc. But the weird thing is, you can't have a tricycle gear setup. You have to have a quadricycle gear setup with two, I guess, nose wheels, but they're really not nose wheels. They're just front wheels on either side under the engine nacelles. And I guess it was rather complicated to do the steering mechanisms on this airplane, and it apparently took quite a bit of time to get this thing configured and connected, and then the reverse of getting to where you're going and unconnecting or disconnecting everything, and it just proved to be very what's
ungainly.
The word? Ungainly and just didn't make any sense. Complex.
Maybe
yeah,
not
a
the
bit
most
of a
practical.
white elephant, if you ask me. I mean, you're going to need an awful lot of those bottom half of the fuselages, because if you're just taking from one place to another, you're going to have to take all the full ones over there, dump them, come home, grab another one, take it over there, dump it, come, and eventually you're going to run out of the cargo areas. So unless you're going to pick something up at the other end when you land that's already been filled and you're going to take something back, then I'm going, well, what's the point? And I can just see the expense of having lots of extra cargo holders.
Mm-hmm. Right. Not only that,
around.
But have you guys seen what used shipping containers look like?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you imagine if you now had to treat that like an airworthy part?
Yeah, they get pretty beat up, don't they?
Yeah.
And they're made of pretty heavy-duty steel as well, very heavy.
I think the people that deal with them just probably don't care as much as airplane people.
Probably
so
not.
Take a pretty significant mindset shift.
They said that the evaluation crews discovered that attaching or removing the pod required an unusual amount of time due to the slow hoisting mechanism, and doing so in high or gusty winds proved challenging. So basically, they made one of these things, and then they canceled the program, and the Sol XC-120 was ultimately scrapped.
What an awful piece of kit, though.
Yeah.
It didn't even, I mean, the steering was a challenge, but also, I guess they couldn't overcome the left turning tendency on takeoff. So with full right rudder, so they had to use asymmetric power until they got above 35 knots.
So they had the
none of this
props
was a good
turning
design.
in the same direction.
Yeah.
Dear.
Plus,
Well,
it's
that was a
pretty
mistake.
ugly.
Yeah, and those are 4360s, so they don't look that big on that airframe, but that's the biggest airplane. That's the biggest engine in the inventory back then.
Wow.
Oh
well, nice try. Yeah, look at the size of the guys. That's a good that picture of the.
I thought the weird ladder. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's very strange ladder. I think they talk about
It looks
that
like one of
ladder,
those
too.
like kids toys, like the Connect. What are they called? I forget what they are. Like pretty flimsy.
Avocado ladder. Yes.
I think they talked about the ladder in this article. Yeah, I can't find it.
No, it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, it's in the show notes. Okay. This is, I think, going to generate some interesting discussion. How much time do we have left, Liz?
We've got about 20 minutes.
Okay, I think we can do it. So Sean McHale sent this in, and the title of the feedback is, "Don't you dare go around." Okay. So it says ATC tells the pilot he cannot go around even if the pilot objects to the spacing. Okay, well, let's see. Why don't we play the audio of this and see if we can figure out what is happening.
November 9, Yankee Tango, continue down to Alpha 3, then Alpha Hotel departing this frequency.
Charlottesville Tower, 146 Tango Charlie, we're going to go around and enter the left pattern.
6 Tango Charlie, I only need 3,000 feet, I've got that. You're still clear to land, don't you dare go around.
Traffic is still on the runway, 146 Tango Charlie.
I know, I have the 3,000 feet that I need.
Alright, traffic off, 146 Tango Charlie, landing.
He doesn't need to be off. 6 Tango Charlie, Alpha 2, Alpha Hotel departing this frequency, and we don't need him to be off the runway. You guys are the same category of aircraft that only need 3,000 feet. That company policy does not override the rules, so Alpha 2, Alpha 5, back to runway 21, and where are you going after this?
Okay, he's going to a bar probably and drink heavily. Let's see. So just to, I know it was a little bit fuzzy, the audio on this, but it was, I think it was CHO, which is Charlottesville, I believe. And
correct.
That's in
I'm
Virginia.
pretty sure.
Where you fly,
Steph?
Steph?
No.
Oh, okay.
CLT is Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah,
not Charlottesville.
CHO is Cho, Charlottesville. So I thought it was interesting.
Wait, what does that make CLT then?
I don't know. Nice try.
Definitely not the same as Little Rock.
Yeah. So
tell me when you want the slide up, Jeff.
Yeah, throw the slide up, Liz, please. Okay. So I thought, really, she only needs. So I'm in this world of airliner flying, and I thought the rule was that, you couldn't land if somebody else was still using the. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had to go around because somebody was still at the end of the runway, had not yet cleared. But apparently there are different rules for different categories of aircraft, and so I did some research and looked up the JO Joint Order 7110.65 whiskey, and let's see, it's under the section 3-10-3, same runway separation. Separate an arriving aircraft from another aircraft using the same runway by ensuring that the arriving aircraft does not cross the landing threshold until one of the following conditions exists, or unless authorized in a different paragraph. The other aircraft has landed and is clear of the runway. Okay, that's obvious, right? That's kind of what I thought the rule was for everybody and everywhere. It's apparently not. Between sunrise and sunset. Okay, so it's got to be daytime, not night operations. If you determine distances by reference suitable landmarks and the other aircraft has landed, it need not be clear of the runway at the following minimum distance from the landing threshold exists. And they have different scenarios here. But basically, in this case, it was, straight ahead on the runway, and it was a Category 1 and a Category 1 aircraft. And so because they were the same category and they were, the lowest category, she only needed to have 3,000 feet. Now, I think the key to this is that maybe for her, the rule is that she can clear an airplane to land when that 3,000 foot separation exists. But that doesn't mean that the pilot flying the airplane, the pilot in command, doesn't have the prerogative to decide to land or go around. I mean, air traffic control can't make us do things. And she can lawfully or whatever, clear an airplane to land. That's her requirement, not our requirement. And that was the thing I think that was most inflammatory to this whole instance. Exchange, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a controller say, "Don't you dare go around."
Don't you dare go around. Hey, I had, and when she said, I have what I need for, well, that's the key. You have what you need, to clear the guy for landing, but it doesn't. You can't force him to land.
I'm just a spiteful person because I'm so bummed that airplane did not immediately go around.
Yeah,
because I would have loved to have seen what she did. If that airplane was like,
What's wrong with her? Like why was she so upset he might go around? Like I don't.
Why was she
get
so
it.
upset? I don't know.
I assume that her airport's pretty busy if she's trying to land two airplanes on the same runway. So a go around is probably gonna like mess up her flow a little bit, but that doesn't matter. Like that has no
bearing.
That's no justification for like her trying to override the PIC authority or anything.
Right. That's the key. Pilot and command authority. A controller can't make a pilot do or not do something just because they want them to.
You're not the boss of me.
Yeah, exactly. I just thought that was, and I think that the guy she was kind of telling, don't you dare go around, was an instructor pilot with a student. And, I would have said, well, we've decided that it looks unsafe, so we're going to go around. It's legitimate.
I would have given,
All
I've
right,
got an indication here that it is unsafe for me to land.
Right.
I need to go around.
And this is a hypothetical
I've got
situation
a number
for my
you,
student.
air traffic controller.
And, and he needs to, or she needs to experience a go-around in this situation, so that's what we're going to do. So anyway, I was just kind of curious what you guys thought about that, but I was just like, what? What do you mean?
Nick and Steph were underwhelmed.
Yeah, if I was that pilot, I wouldn't have even argued about company rules or anything. I'm going around.
Exactly.
End of discussion.
Yeah, we didn't hear that part of the conversation. We can only get
Peter Tarantelli has the way she should have put it.
Peter Tarantelli in our audience says she should have stated that it's legal, but ultimately it's up to the pilot. Well, I don't think she would ever say that.
Well, and the other thing is,
I'm just a bit worried if she has that attitude and the pilot happens to be an inexperienced or student pilot who is not flying a particularly good approach, and she insists he land. They might succumb to her perceived authority and make a hash of the landing and wreck the airplane or do worse. So she just needs to be taught exactly what her position is on the pecking order, the pecking order.
Yeah, Metro Doc says
he should have given her a number to call.
Yeah,
very good.
Are you ready to copy down a number, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they must have had a conversation after this.
I'm sure they probably did.
Yeah.
Guys, we got 10 minutes left, maybe one other. Peter's in the chat room. Why don't we do Peter's video and then that's it?
Let's do. Oh, it's a video. Yeah, it is. Okay. So let me set up for that, and then hang on. Oh, where'd it go? Oh no. Did I not put it in? Oh, I think I took the audio from it.
By the way, that while you're getting that set up, Jeff, that is one of the waivers at Oshkosh. So when they talk about the Oshkosh waiver, like the NOTAM and the waiver at Oshkosh, one of the big ones is they get a waiver they waive the standard separation distance on landing. I think it goes from maybe like 3,000 feet to 1,500 feet or something. But that's how they're allowed to land airplanes on the different dots, is because they get the standard separation covered by a waiver.
Huh. Well, why don't they just do that all the time? 1,500 is enough, right? Just kidding.
Dots on every
seems
runway.
Excessive.
Yeah, it seems excessive. Yeah, you got to just go out there and paint a bunch of colored dots on runways.
We've done pairs landings, Jeff, with zero separation.
Oh, yeah. Formation landings are fun, for sure. Okay, so this and I think, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before or played this audio before, but it's probably been some time. So thank you, Peter, for bringing it up again. And he says, you've probably seen this, but in case you haven't, enjoy. And this is a YouTube video that we're going to listen to the audio of, because that's really the point of the thing. This lady here is what a lot of people refer to. Well, here, let me read this. Person behind the cockpit central aural warning system, CAWS, C-A-W-S, for just a few aircraft. The aircraft are, to the best of my knowledge, the Boeing 717, the MD-10, C-17, C-130, and I believe the MD-88 and MD-90 as well, because her voice sounds very familiar to me. Let's see. She says, sorry about the first second of the video. I cannot fix it. Well, I fixed it. I am real. I am not the first. I'm not the last. Bitchin' Betty. Enjoy my short video. So here we go. Nope, that's the other one.
This is for all those airline pilots who ever wonder if Bitchin' Betty is actually real or not. Well, I'm very real, and I'm Bitchin' Betty for several commercial and military aircraft cockpits. Here's a sample of some of my recordings that I've done that you may be familiar with. Autopilot, autopilot, stabilizer motion, landing gear, approaching minimums, minimums, 100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. That's just a sample of some of the things that you may hear in the cockpit. I've recorded many more that hopefully you will never hear. I hope you've enjoyed my very first YouTube video. Bye.
Take out the garbage.
You have to say it twice.
Oh, yeah. Take out the garbage. Take out the garbage. Yeah, so I get the Bitchin' Betty that was that did the F-18, Nick, was another lady. She was an older lady, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah, we played her video quite a while ago now, but she was discovered, and they did a really nice video of her with an aircraft in the hangar, as I recall. And she was retiring basically at that point. But,
yeah, I remember that. Maybe that's probably what I'm confusing this with is the other bitch.
Now this looks like a lady in her prime.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. Thanks, Peter.
Well, thanks, Peter. Appreciate that. And hey, Liz, we still have 2 pieces of feedback left.
Yahoo!
Yay,
That
from
makes me
Roberta.
happy.
And about 10 pieces of news.
I know.
Lots of news, yeah, because we kind of spent a lot of time on that first one, which I think was appropriate. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fine with it.
yeah.
All right, let's wrap her up.
Time to wrap up this thing, this baby. And we're going to point you over to our website, airlinepilotguy.com, where we still haven't done anything about the fact that there may have been, there might be some outdated information. But
listen, it's still more up to date than treasurydirect.gov.
we got that going for us.
We're winning.
Can we make that a byline on the website?
Government work.
It's better than the treasury.gov site. Yeah, so lots of stuff there to check out, so please do so. And we're on social media, or what I like to call socialmedias. Go ahead.
Head
Steph.
over to whichever of the social medias is your favorite.
Yeah.
We have facebook.com/airlinepilotguy, X at APG crew, and find our individual handles pinned to the top of that page. If you're just there for the show artwork each week, that's on Instagram, instagram.com/APG crew. And to join us in these live recordings or watch the video recordings of the shows, youtube.com/@airlinepilotguy/streams. And always, I think Hillel is lurking in Jeff's RVS bathroom.
Using a lot of water there, Jeff.
And he hopefully will tell us about Slack.
Can you tell us about Slack?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
Come on over here and tell us about Slack, Hillel.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
All right, thanks a lot, Hillel.
Sorry, Jeff, I might have used all your skin lotion.
That's okay, I'll get more. And I don't use it all the time, just sometimes I get some rough spots, dry spots. I should stop talking because I'm going to get myself into trouble. And I'm not even sure. Hello, is this on? I'm not getting any.
Calling it skin lotion is kind of weird. Don't most people just call it lotion?
Just call it lotion?
Yeah, that's weird. Why do you call it skin lotion?
I mean, sometimes it's specifically like face lotion. Like that's kind of a separate thing, especially for women.
I guess.
Okay,
skin lotion.
I've heard of face lotion. I've never heard anyone call it skin lotion.
Hand lotion.
I think it's email slack@airlinepilotguy.com and Hillel will tell you why he calls it skin lotion. I have no idea.
He's gonna love that when he gets
this would be really interesting.
So AJ, nice to have you back on with us. It was interesting to hear what you did out in California. You out there playing and all. Yeah. And great to see you, Camacho. We haven't seen you in a while, so welcome back. And, and get back to work. And go Chiefs and go Birds. I'm going to just watch the game and watch this beautiful professional football being performed. And
thanks to Liz for keeping this all on track today.
Yes,
she is
always
as always.
And so, and Captain Nick as well. Thank you for that plain tale. Awesome. You may think it's boring because you lived it, but we love the RAF 414s. We really do.
We're going to be sad when the last one gets produced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to die before then, don't worry.
No, stop it.
Well, you know what?
I suspect Nick has stories for quite a while.
Yeah, I think so.
How long did you say? 25 years of an airline career?
Oh, sadly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it won't be too. I mean, the idea is it wasn't very exciting doing that. I mean,
well, as far as you want anybody to know, some of us know otherwise. No, I'm just making that up, trying to get them in trouble. Anyway, well, thank you to our live audience as well. We had a nice big audience today, several new people, and great to see you, and some that we've seen in the past and met in person even, who showed up today to probably hear what we had to say about that first news item, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it for some time. So thank you, all of you. We love you. We really appreciate you coming every week and helping us out with everything. And to you who are listening on your audio player or Spotify or however you're watching or listening to us, thank you so much. We love you as well. Thanks for listening. And with that, we're going to say, wishing you all clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
See ya.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Good day.
I used to be such a good pilot till I started APG. I opened doors for little old ladies. I helped them to their seats. Airline pilot guy, I fly America. Oh, airline pilot guy, he can land in heavy fog. I got no friends 'cause I'm always flying. I just don't have the time. But I can land this old plane. I can land it just fine. Airline pilot